Welcome back to Retro Rebound. In today's video, we have all awoken from what seems to be a fever dream. Budokai Tenkaichi 4. Are you kidding me? Look, story time. Your boy is out with a couple of friends, went to a bar, no drinks, went to a bar, and I saw a text from my friend, and it said, "Oh my god, Budokai Tenkaichi 4 is real." Now, my friend sometimes trolls me, so I saw this and went, there's no way. Like, all these years later, so I slide to the bathroom like, hey, BRB. And I check my phone. Oh my god, it's real. Oh my god, it's real. And you know what's funny is I was hawking over this Dragon Ball stream that was going on for a card tournament because I love the Dragon Ball Super card game. Shout out to like all three of you who have played it before in analog form. It's fantastic. They announced a digital version last year, which I've been begging for because my local scene died for it. So I knew there was going to be an update today. I literally put a reminder on my phone months ago, check today for that update. And they announced Budokai Tenkaichi 4. And then they show off the game and they say there's a beta for the card game. Oh my god, I was popping off in this bathroom, man. No drinks needed. It was fantastic. So, ladies and gentlemen, today, in celebration of the announcement of Budokai Tenkaichi 4, we're calling a little bit of an audible on the play for Retro Rebound. We're changing plans. I want to explain to y'all who didn't have the opportunity to play Budokai Tenkaichi across the PS2 and PSP, and if you care about Ultimate Tenkaichi, then the PS3 and Xbox, why this series matters so much to us, and why the announcement was such, not just a big deal, but a complete shock. So ladies and gentlemen, if you are new here and you are into the latest and greatest for Dragon Ball, for retrospective and nostalgic content, consider subscribing. And this is just a special video, right? We've already done a retrospective for all of the Tenkaichi games. We also did a Ultimate Tenkaichi retrospective, and that was fun. Thanks for putting me through that. But let's get started with the first one. So Dragon Ball was typically known from the Budokai games as this 2D fighter with 3D elements, and it was fantastic. My personal favorite of the Budokai trilogy was Budokai 2. I just love the board game, the map. It just works really, really well for me. Now, there are other games in the Budokai spirit as well as the Tenkaichi spirit. Like, you could argue that Burst Limit is technically a Budokai game. You could say Raging Blast is a Tenkaichi game. Like, they have their own play styles. That's how they're really identified by. So, Budokai Tenkaichi is identified by its 3D elements. Hence, the first game that we have here, Budokai Tenkaichi, got it for 15 bucks at a local game shop. And the back says, everything else was just training, in reference to Budokai, the ultimate Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball GT fighting game. Battle in the air, on land, and even underwater. Totally destructible 3D environment with never before seen freedom. 57 unique characters in 87 powerful forms, and each with their own strengths and strategies. Relive the greatest DBZ, DBGT battles as a hero and villain in expanded story modes, and customize your characters into the ultimate Super Warrior. Not too bad, right? So let's take a look at the manual, and we'll go over the initial DBZ Budokai Tenkaichi experience, because it was a trip, to say the least. So, taking a peep at the manual, all these are fully illustrated, which makes me a very happy lad. You start off with my favorite character, Trunks, right here, and you're already talking my language. Now, what you'll recognize is they go through a lot of the characters, but they seldom speak on the story. Like here, they just mention Z Battlegate, relive your favorite Dragon Ball Z and GT stories through the eyes of the heroes and villains involved. Now, compared to, I'd say, the rest of the Budokai Tenkaichi trilogy, I believe that this is the least ambitious one, but it makes sense because the big selling point for this one was the change in gameplay. We only knew the Budokai style of gameplay. Now we're getting Tenkaichi, which you're going to see as we tab through this manual. There's a big focus on controls, you know, on where you are in the actual arena, the health gauge, the key gauges, time. And this is all important because when you switch to 3D, it changes the entire dynamic of the fighting game, right? And there was definitely a speed bump here. There was definitely a, when you go back to it at least, maybe not at the time, when you go back to it, you go, oh, this definitely feels like their first try at that. It was super unrefined. The camera, especially in this game, is pretty bad. Not that it's ever fantastic in Budokai Tenkaichi, but it's tolerable. In this game, it's borderline intolerable. And as you scroll through, you'll see familiar Budokai Tenkaichi, and really just Budokai modes like the World Tournament. You'll see the practice mode here. And they have little breakdowns of each of the characters here on the bottom bars. You see Krillin here on the top bar. And each one has their own little definition, like Janemba, it says, is as strong as he is mean, and his master swordplay renders most characters defenseless. Janemba shoots a fast ki blast and dashes faster than most, but in combat, he doesn't break the average of 5 consecutive hits. One of the defining qualities of Budokai Tenkaichi's combat are the stun lock chains that you can do, you know, where you press square a bunch of times and you hold triangle, you hear that whoosh, and you just stun them, and you keep trying to chain those stuns together. If you can get that down, some of the combos in this game look so nice, just across the whole series. But what I loved about this is how they tried to identify the differences in each character. As the series went on, the defining quality became the size of the roster too, as we'll talk about with Budokai Tenkaichi 3. But otherwise, you see the Evolution Z stuff. This was also in the kind of leveling up RPG mechanics. We're in Budokai. The ultimate battle is pretty much your mode where you fight 100 fighters at once. And somehow DBZ games became known for their insane amount of replayability. But that's a complete in-box copy of Budokai Tenkaichi. It's a good game, but just when you look at it against the rest of the series, you can tell, you know, first-timer syndrome, if you will. Now we get into what is my personal favorite of the trilogy, and that's Budokai Tenkaichi 2. Number 1, Trunks is on the cover. Hello, my boy's right here. Sword's right here. You see Goku in the reflection of the blade, Super Saiyan. You see Kid Goku, the GT, Super Saiyan 4 Goku. Dude, come on, speaking my language here. The back of the box, it says, the most explosive fighting game ever unleashed the power of more than 120 DBZ heroes and villains, more playable characters than any other fighting game from Dragon Ball Z, and Dragon Ball GT. Tips and tricks, the latest addition to this popular Budokai series, can be summed up in 3 words: bigger, better, and badder. Live the complete adventure in a 60-hour enhanced story mode that covers the complete DBZ mythology. Destroy 16 expansive battlefields with crushing blows and devastating power attack combinations. And demolish your opponents with new moves and combinations, including in-game transformations, tag battles, and vanishing attacks. This one right here, folks, if you're going to go ahead and try any of them out, not that you really are going to make a bad choice with any of them, this is the one I adore. Why is that? Well, when we get into the complete box experience here, you're going to see the first thing that they call out in the manual, this beautiful manual with wonderful illustrations in the backdrop here. It's funny though, like you open up the Slug. It's like, yeah, that's the character I remember DBZ for. Slug. That's my guy, yeah. And it's funny, like throughout this entire manual, I just noticed they consistently do that. Like Frieza, okay, that makes sense. Like Frieza, right. But then you see Yajirobe and Android 13, and it represents just how many characters are in this game that are playable. But I got a personal kick out of this. The reason it's 60 hours long is because of 2 things. Number 1, it's kind of got an open world feel. One of my favorite things, as you'll see in the opening here of this manual, is going to be, beyond the battle screen, the Dragon Adventure. This speaks to me personally because as you're flying around from objective to objective, it brought the DBZ world to life in a way that we always dreamt of. If there was one redeeming quality of Ultimate Tenkaichi, it's that it also had that element of flying around the overworld and finding things happening. And of course, another reason why we love DBZ Kakarot, a game we covered here on the channel. But Budokai Tenkaichi 2, oh my word, that feeling as a kid. I remember renting this from Blockbuster and thinking, whoa, it's actually open world. Like I can go anywhere. And of course it's very limited what you can do, but just flying to and fro with your missions was amazing in my opinion. The reason it becomes such a long game is they cover every single fight, mini or big. Every fight is covered. And so yeah, it does bloat the game a little bit, and towards the end you may be a bit fatigued by it because the fights start to feel the same a little bit. You start to recognize the same button patterns work. So it kind of shows the weaknesses of the game, but I like it because it's in the middle ground where the roster isn't too grand. It isn't too big. There's enough differentiations between characters in the form of transformations, in the form of combos and super attacks you can do, where it's still a very fulfilling DBZ experience and there is variety in the roster without getting too big that characters truly feel the same, just with a different coat of paint. That's the main reason I love this game. It's something with Dragon Ball games and their second entries, whether it's Budokai Tenkaichi 2, Budokai 2, they just seem to get something right. It's also, when you get deeper into this manual here, where I discovered the Dragon Tournament as a kid, I love this mode. It's in pretty much every Dragon Ball game, just the ability to compete in tournaments and win Zenny. And that Zenny, as you'll see a little bit further in this manual here, part of my microphone, the mic arm is breaking, so you may see it fade into the shot a little more than usual today, is beyond the character select. Hold on, there's quite a few pages here, and I think right here, Evolution Z. Evolution Z is a big part of what's going on here in the Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi games, because what you'll do is you'll acquire Z items with your money and you'll equip them to characters, and what that allow you to do is level up. So you'll be able to take on tougher enemies in the overworld, and there is a sense of progression. And when you get that real curve going for your character and you start doing some serious damage, it feels good. It was back then where games didn't always have to be RPGs, and when the layer was added, it was more purposeful. Like nowadays you get an RPG and you go, of course you're an RPG. What game isn't an RPG or has RPG elements today? That's why I think it's the best genre. It's like you can't help but borrow from the GOAT. But this was back when every game wasn't doing it. So when it happened, it was significant. And so Evolution Z, to me, is fantastic. And this game just builds everything around it. It's all about progression, and that post-battle screen, when you hear the music, that... One of my favorite tracks. As a kid, I thought it was so hype. The soundtrack is fantastic. So that's Budokai Tenkaichi. Oh my God, my whole mic just fell over. I wasn't kidding when I said this thing was breaking, did I? Oh my God, the whole mic arm just broke off.
6 hours later.
Okay, I fixed my microphone. So moving on, I suppose. Let's get into Budokai Tenkaichi 3. This is the darling of the Budokai Tenkaichi series. Why is that? It marked the end of an era where this was the fighting game to own. Like if you went over a buddy's house and they had Budokai Tenkaichi 3, it was almost a guarantee this bad boy was going to get fired up. What's so special about it? We're going to get into it. This is also one of the most expensive games in the DBZ series. So I highly recommend, if Bandai is watching, please, a remaster. Something would be great to tide us over until Budokai Tenkaichi 4 is ready. So anyway, Budokai Tenkaichi 3, the back of the box. It says, Superhero Showdown. Battle as and against the most incredible fighters in the universe in an ultimate contest of good versus evil. I just gotta say, I love the Piccolo representation here. Piccolo is a top 3 character for me. I think until Superhero, there really wasn't much love going around for him, but I think people are quick to forget his importance to the story and just how good of a character he is. So this game and its box art, I love the Piccolo love here. Now it says, use disc fusion system to unlock ultimate battle modes from Budokai Tenkaichi 1 and 2, which is awesome. 150 characters, 10 game modes, 20 stages, endless challenges, save and replay your favorite battles with new battle replay mode. So as I'm sure you saw, by the way, Complete in Box comes with a bonus disc, which is the best fights as voted by the fans. And then of course the game disc right here. This is again a pretty expensive game to get your hands on. The Wii version is far cheaper. But anyway, the manual will indicate, as it showed on the back of the box too, the main highlight here is the roster. The roster in Budokai Tenkaichi 3 is absolutely enormous. It is why so many people wanted Budokai Tenkaichi to come back, because you get a little bit of that taste in Xenoverse. Like you have all these characters there and they're playable, but you're not going to play as them. You're going to want to play as the character you spent 80 hours customizing and leveling up. So it has the Budokai Tenkaichi vibe there. The combat system isn't quite the same. I'm just very curious what they're going to do with the roster. A lot of people are very amped up with the idea of like, oh, you're going to surpass the Budokai Tenkaichi 3 roster. In today's game development scene, 150 plus characters, unless they all play borderline identical, which is kind of what the series became known for, I find it tough to imagine. Maybe they do that, but that's why people love Budokai Tenkaichi 3, and they wanted more. And again, you get evolutions of that with, say, Raging Blast, where it's got the Budokai Tenkaichi spirit, but it's kind of in a different direction for the next generation. So continuing on here, you'll see in the manual that it's a lot of the same, to tell you the truth. Like, it's definitely the least exciting Complete in Box. They skim over the story here with Dragon History, which is much like what you saw in Budokai Tenkaichi 1 at the time. It's just a recap of all of the different events that you would see throughout the Dragon Ball show at that time. They do so here with DBZ Tenkaichi 3. Now, what's very interesting for those of you who are fans of Retro Rebound, you may know there is a mod for Budokai Tenkaichi 3 that allows you to play, I put in quotes, Budokai Tenkaichi 4. And it's awesome. It adds Dragon Ball Super characters, stages, stories, and you can replay the stories from the movies and the show. And we're pretty much going to finally get that because we saw Super Saiyan God Goku during the trailer. So it's like, okay, we're going, like, it's going to Super. That's exciting because that to me is what we were missing, and that mod addressed it. So shout out to that mod. Again, we covered it just out of like complete respect for the efforts that they went to. There are cutscenes in there. It's amazing. But that is what the story in DBZ Budokai Tenkaichi 3 is about. Just eras and eras. And wasn't nearly as meaty as Budokai Tenkaichi 2, but it trimmed down some of the I'd say minor fights, if you will, and just focused on the major, which is still pretty good. Again, they talk about disc fusion here, which we read about in the back of the box. So you can unlock the ultimate battle mode there, which I always thought was really cool. There's the World Tour here, which is, you know, it includes the Cell games, the World Martial Arts Tournament. There's dueling, which is one-on-one, the Evolution Z, the item shop. You'll see, like, yeah, it's familiar. Like, it's just the biggest roster with all the same bells and whistles. But for me, what it's missing is that open world, which is what I personally adored. Not that you really lose something with Dragon History, but to me, it's just, it doesn't speak the same to me as Budokai Tenkaichi 2 does. But that's the trilogy right there. Those are the big three that people love. And just briefly, for the sake of history, because that's what this channel is all about, I just want to highlight Tenkaichi Tag Team. This is a PSP exclusive game. As you can see here, you got Super Saiyan Gohan, you got Trunks facing off, you got Vegeta and Goku. Love the art here. The back of the box says experience 2v2 team battle with 70 playable and customizable characters. Relive epic battles from the Dragon Ball Z series or create your own matchups. Jump into white-knuckled action with tons of signature skills and super attacks, as well as multiple adrenaline-pumping single-player and multiplayer modes. We'll go through the manual here, but the long and short of it, if you will, is that Budokai Tenkaichi Tag Team is really just known for, and look at that, black and white. So we know we're going south here. What it's known for, though, is, of course, the Dragon Walker map is awesome. So they kind of has that Budokai Tenkaichi 2 energy. I love that type of stuff. But as you see, very short manual. We're already at the second language in the manual, and we're, what? It says page 9, so we're 8 pages in at this point. So there's not much to really go over here inside the manual. And really that's fair because all you need to know is that this was taking the Tenkaichi formula and putting it in your pocket. Same thing as Shin Budokai took the Budokai formula and put it in your pocket. Tag Team took the Budokai Tenkaichi formula and said, hey, take it on the go. Isn't that great? And it was great. So that is really why we love these games so much. They're special. They have huge rosters. They're very fun. They're celebrations of the history of DBZ more than anything, rather than like what Xenoverse is doing now with revisions of DBZ history. It's callbacks to our childhood. The combat was satisfying, even if it was simplistic because of the stun lock chains you could do. And there was always room for more, because as the series grew, it was like, well, there's more stories to be told. So now the idea of like them telling super and superhero is so exciting, so exciting. The Broly movie as well. This can be a legendary video game for DBZ fans. And it's funny because all the speculation was like, oh, they got to do Xenoverse 3, like move on from Xenoverse. Now no one cares. They're like, yeah, you can hang around with that as long as you want. Next thing you know, they're going to bring back like the Legacy of Goku series, and that would be insane because those are some of our most successful videos on the channel. But anyway, I just wanted to celebrate the announcement of Budokai Tenkaichi 4. I wanted to let people know why this matters to us so much. And for those who aren't caught up, I just revise the history of this fantastic series. And for those who are already caught up, just get to relive it one more time as we wait for whenever Budokai Tenkaichi 4 rolls around. So ladies and gentlemen, I leave it in your hands now. What do you think of Budokai Tenkaichi? Fire away. Thank you for bearing with me as this microphone seemed to give me a lot of trouble this video. And with that, I look forward to seeing you in the next Retro Rebound. Peace out.